When am I ever gonna give up on this make it stick stuff? Never, bruh. Never, bruh. No Anki's due today, no flashcards. So, what did we read about yesterday? Well, failure. Right, so much about failure. So much about failure. FailCon, Festival of Errors. So after that French study on the sixth graders, right? They in France they started the Festival of Errors once a year. Where I don't know if it's once a year, but they're trying to basically teach the youth and students in the culture that mistakes are natural and are required for learning, right? So to stop trying to avoid mistakes and embrace mistakes, or embrace mistakes and trying and persevering in the face of mistakes anyway. And that's what led to the great inventions and discoveries of the French culture, contributed to science and technology and others. So yeah, FailCon is a similar thing in Silicon Valley, where once a year, VCs, venture capitalists, and tech entrepreneurs come together and talk about the mistakes they made that year that helped them learn things that were critical for the business. So really, this is a culture of embracing failures and making mistakes, and not avoiding them, but seeing them as a critical part of learning, crucial for learning. The authors say something about failure that I don't fully agree with. They say it's not the failures that are desirable or difficult. The desirable difficulties are not the failures themselves. I don't agree with that. From the modern neuroscience, the agitation of failures and mistakes actually lead to neuroplasticity, as far as I understand. But the authors say, but it's the effort in spite of the risk that is desirable. It is the perseverance in the face of failures. It is the knowledge of what works and what doesn't work that only sometimes failures can teach. And it's that man, there's something else in there, but we'll keep going. I forgot this yesterday too. Something about what's desirable about failures. I don't know. They talked about Carol Dweck's research that stems from viewing talent and intelligence as fixed or malleable through effort, strategy, and guidance. What that stems from and leads to as far as perseverance. Thomas Edison's secret to success: perseverance in the face of setback and failure and mistakes. Reframing failures is a huge theme of this section, from the end of the road to just a new direction in the road. A crucial part of learning, completely natural. Things that come up in practice that with corrective feedback you can continue to improve upon and make mistakes less and less. But they're lessons, they're teachers. It's a myth that when we make mistakes, it's the mistakes that we're going to remember. That's a fear of teachers and instructors, and that's not the truth. That, especially with corrective feedback, it's not what is remembered. So fear of failure poisons learning, or can poison learning, because this wasn't even yesterday, I don't think. Test anxiety, lower working memory capacity from test anxiety, wasting working memory capacity, as well as it's limiting the amount of risks and things you take, experimentation. So, trying leads to more learning than just being spoon-fed the answers. And there's some implications that we elaborated on yesterday, but we'll continue. Not all difficulties are desirable. What does that mean? Test anxiety, for example, makes the test more difficult, but it wastes working memory capacity and actually leads to less learning. Mistakes and failure, signs of effort, and they're good. Anders Ericsson's research takes thousands of hours of deliberate practice to become an expert or a master of something. And what is just deliberate practice is like, it's sitting with your current level and trying to surpass your current level, and a failure is a critical part of what's keeping you at a certain level. So recognizing these mistakes and failures and then learning how to overcome them is how you're going to progress to the next level. So they're critical for improving your level of mastery, striving to pass that. So, okay. Yeah, I think that's basically everything from yesterday. Answer what last section was about. So, what is this section about? Failure, myth of errorless learning. How one views failure and mistakes greatly impacts learning. So what do we want? What is optimal? Failure is crucial for learning. There we go. Failure is crucial for learning. They're lessons. They're teachers. Failure is teachers. They are teachers. They give lessons. Okay. Yeah, we'll just keep it at that. Failure is crucial for learning. Do not avoid failures. Embrace. Don't shy away from mistakes. All right. Woo! There we go. Another section complete. Next section begins. An example of generative learning. Here we go. And we ask, what is this section about? As always, this should be one of the last sections nearly. Yeah, undesirable difficulties. Very short section. So this is the biggest section left in this chapter. Let's get to it. Be back in a bit after reading. All right, guys, believe it or not, I just read that whole entire section. 4 pages or something, which is a very big day for me. I usually read like 2 pages, but that's because there was very few notes to be taken. It was just a story, an example, as the section title states, example of generative learning. Generative learning is defined here as basically learning from doing without being taught. So trial and error, attempting to do something before being taught or without being taught, and aka trial and error. So they also use the term blundering as this generative learning, just jumping in, getting started, and learning as you go from experience. It's a very inspirational story, actually. This is a woman who started gardening in her middle ages, and she was a writer, and she started writing like a newsletter about her experiences and what she learned and what she didn't, what she learned and what she did. Quarterly newsletter. Became very famous, popular in the gardening community. But basically her whole process was just jumping in, like, I don't need to learn like all these nomenclature and all this stuff, Latin names of plants and all this stuff. Just gonna start digging holes and planting. And over time, she got better and better and learned what worked, what didn't work, and got more into designing outdoor spaces and building, retaining walls and gates and paths and irrigation systems and the geometry and the lines and the structures of aesthetics. And just through from trial and error and continuing to show up and keep trying. And her goal was always to like just build beautiful spaces and relax and build beautiful things. And she did that through this generative process. Eventually she became very familiar with the Latin nomenclature and these advanced like words and stuff, because it actually became very helpful in being specific about what plants are which plant she's looking for or wants to use, and helping her remember what aspects of that plant, tardivia being like a late bloomer, and these other terms that relate to like what the plant's nature is like. I think it's just a cool story. I'd actually like to see some of her gardens. They said it was like very natural. Also, I'm gonna write this down. Sometimes jumping in with minimal or no planning is actually the best strategy, because planning before doing / starting can lead to becoming overwhelmed and actually never even really starting. That's another big point. And I totally agree with that. This YouTube channel is part of that. That's very blundering, very generative learning. Like, I just make videos and keep making videos and more videos, and I think it would be fun to do that with music as well, from creating music, original music, in a generative process of just like what sounds good. You develop a very complex and unique experience and process in that way. But that's also, it's not the best learning strategy in all scenarios, depending on what you're trying to do, what you're learning, what you want to do. You can learn from other people's experience and it can fast track you. And also, you don't want to be jumping out of planes trying to learn generatively while you're breaking your legs and dying. You break your back and die. So some things you don't want to just learn from trial and error. An example of learning from doing trial and error, not being taught. There we go. That I do love generative learning, and that's why I really like stuff that's like new and cutting edge, because there is no right way to do it, classically trained, whatever. You're just learning as you go, and I think there's something really fun about that. So interesting concept. And yeah, guys, we are 1, 2, 3 pages away from being done with chapter 4. So probably not tomorrow, but the day after, we'll be done reading chapter 4, which is a huge milestone in this 8-chapter book. So that's it for today. Talk to you later. See ya.